In the heart of New York City, amidst the chaotic symphony of honking horns and the relentless flow of hurried pedestrians, lives David, a man in his early 40s, whose existence has undergone a profound transformation in recent years. Once a thriving entrepreneur, David's world crumbled due to a cascade of ill-fated investments and a heart-wrenching separation. Stripped of his former successes, he now finds himself navigating the unforgiving streets with his radiant 10-year-old daughter, Emily. Emily, with her bright eyes and sweet disposition, is the sole beacon of hope and strength in David's life, the only reason he perseveres through each grueling day. If you are not subscribed, I recommend you subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss any videos. Despite the relentless challenges they face, David strives with every ounce of his being to offer Emily whatever semblance of a life he can manage. Each day he roams the city, searching for menial tasks and meager handouts, clinging to the hope that somehow he can pave a path to a brighter future for his daughter. Emily, in turn, is a remarkable child who meets their grim reality with grace and resilience far beyond her tender years. Her constant smile and encouraging words are a balm for David's weary soul, a testament to her strength and the unbreakable bond they share. One crisp autumn afternoon, as David and Emily meandered through the luxurious neighborhood of the Upper East Side, the serenity of their walk was shattered by the clamor emanating from an upscale restaurant. An elderly woman, dressed in elegant finery, was being escorted out by two visibly uncomfortable waiters. Her face was flushed with indignation as she protested the situation. "This is unacceptable," the elderly woman declared with a mixture of frustration and hurt. "I've been a loyal patron of this establishment for decades. You cannot treat me like this simply because I forgot my wallet." Overwhelmed by a surge of empathy, David felt compelled to intervene. "Pardon me," he said, his voice carrying a note of genuine concern as he addressed the waiters. "Can someone explain what's happening here?" One of the waiters, clearly uncomfortable and embarrassed by the predicament, explained, "The lady is unable to settle her bill, and we had no choice but to ask her to leave." David's gaze softened as he looked at the elderly woman, whose poise and grace, despite the distress, spoke volumes of a life rich with dignity and refinement. Without a moment's hesitation, David reached into his pocket, pulling out the scant amount of money he had earned that day through hard labor. "I'll cover her bill," David declared with unwavering resolve. The waiters and the elderly woman stared at him in astonished silence. Emily tugged gently at her father's sleeve, her voice barely above a whisper. "Dad, are you sure? It's all we have." David offered her a reassuring smile, his eyes reflecting the depth of his commitment to doing what was right. Sometimes, Emily, doing the right thing is what matters most, even when it's difficult. Moved by David's selfless act, the elderly woman introduced herself as Mrs. Collins. "Young man, your kindness has left me utterly speechless. Please, allow me to extend an invitation to you and your lovely daughter for tea at my home. It is the least I can do to show my gratitude for your generosity." David hesitated for a moment, caught between the warmth in Mrs. Collins' eyes and the hopeful glimmer in Emily's gaze. The sincerity of the invitation and the genuine gratitude shining in Mrs. Collins' expression eventually persuaded him. Accepting the offer, David and Emily made their way to Mrs. Collins' magnificent mansion nestled in the heart of the Upper East Side. Upon arrival, they were greeted by the sight of an impressive manor, its grandeur evident through the lush, meticulously tended gardens and the stately facade that spoke of a bygone era of opulence. Inside, the elegant living room exuded an air of refined sophistication. As they settled into the plush chairs and sipped fragrant tea, Mrs. Collins regaled them with enchanting tales of her life's travels and adventures. Emily, enraptured by the vivid stories, listened with wide-eyed wonder, her face lighting up with every new anecdote. Suddenly, the serene atmosphere was interrupted when the door to the living room swung open, revealing a young man in his mid-30s, clad in a pristine white doctor's coat. His entrance was abrupt, his concerned expression shifting to surprise as he took in the sight of David and Emily. "Grandma, are you all right?" he inquired, his voice laced with concern. His eyes flitted between Mrs. Collins and the unexpected guests. With a warm smile, Mrs. Collins introduced him. "Michael, it's wonderful you're here. Let me introduce you to our heroes. This is David and his delightful daughter, Emily." Michael, Mrs. Collins' grandson, stood in awe as his grandmother recounted the events at the restaurant. His gaze toward David was a mix of deep gratitude and curiosity. "I'm at a loss for how to thank you for your kindness towards my grandmother," Michael said, his tone sincere and earnest. David, feeling uncomfortable under the scrutiny, attempted to downplay his act of generosity. "I'm sure anyone would have done the same," he murmured modestly. Michael, however, was determined to acknowledge the extraordinary nature of David's gesture. "No, not everyone would have. What you've done is truly remarkable, especially given your current circumstances." An awkward silence settled over the room. Sensing the tension, Emily spoke up with a touch of innocence and earnestness. "Doctor, Michael is right, Dad. You're extraordinary." The ice was broken by Emily's heartfelt declaration, and laughter soon filled the room. Michael, impressed by Emily's maturity and perceptiveness, began engaging her in conversation about her studies and future aspirations. To his surprise, he discovered Emily's keen interest in the field of medicine. "You know," Michael said with a thoughtful expression, "I'm currently giving some basic health talks at a local school. If your father agrees, would you be interested in attending one?" Emily's eyes sparkled with excitement as she turned to her father, her gaze full of hopeful anticipation. David, though initially hesitant, was swayed by the radiant joy on his daughter's face. "I suppose it wouldn't hurt," he conceded with a smile. Thus, what began as a simple act of selfless kindness evolved into the foundation of an unexpected and enriching friendship. David and Emily started visiting Mrs. Collins and Michael regularly, discovering not only support but a meaningful connection that none of them had anticipated. As the weeks went by, Michael found himself increasingly fascinated by David. The dignity with which David faced his struggles and his unwavering devotion to Emily struck a deep chord with him. For David, Michael emerged as not only a brilliant physician but also a compassionate and empathetic individual, enriching their lives in ways they had never imagined. One day, as Emily attended one of Michael's enlightening talks, David and Mrs. Collins found themselves enjoying a tranquil moment in the garden. The serene beauty of the surroundings seemed to provide a perfect backdrop for a heartfelt conversation. Mrs. Collins, her face etched with the wisdom that only years of experience can impart, turned to David with a gaze full of understanding. "You know, young man," she began softly, "sometimes life thrusts us into trials that appear insurmountable, but it is through these very trials that our true strength is revealed." David, deeply moved by Mrs. Collins' profound insight, felt a rare sense of relief wash over him. For the first time in what felt like ages, he allowed himself to let down his defenses. His voice trembled as he recounted his harrowing journey, the loss of his once thriving business, the departure of his wife, who took with her the remnants of their fortune, and the stark reality of starting over alone with Emily at his side. Mrs. Collins listened intently, her eyes glistening with empathy and compassion. When David's story came to an end, she reached out and gently clasped his hand. "My dear David," she said with heartfelt sincerity, "you have weathered tempests that would have shattered many. Yet here you stand, fighting each day with unwavering dedication for your daughter. That is a testament to a strength within you that few are fortunate enough to possess." Meanwhile, Emily was completely absorbed in Michael's talk, her keen intellect and inquisitive nature prompting questions that even impressed the older students in the room. Michael, captivated by the girl's sharp mind and eagerness to learn, found himself contemplating the vast potential that might be going unfulfilled due to their challenging circumstances. As the talk drew to a close, and while David waited to collect Emily, Michael made a thoughtful decision. "Emily," he said with a warm smile, "how would you feel about attending these talks more regularly? I'd be happy to offer you some private science lessons." Emily's face lit up with joy, only to be shadowed by a look of concern. "I'd love to, Doctor. Michael, but I'm afraid we might not be able to afford it." Michael's expression remained kind and reassuring. "Don't worry about the cost. Let's make it a mutually beneficial arrangement. You help me prepare for my talks, and in return, I'll provide you with lessons. How does that sound?" When David arrived and Emily eagerly relayed Michael's generous offer, he was overwhelmed by a surge of gratitude and disbelief. His instinct was to decline, driven by a mix of pride and the fear of accepting charity. However, seeing the spark of hope and excitement in Emily's eyes, he found himself unable to refuse. Thus, a new chapter unfolded, weaving a rich tapestry of relationships that would profoundly impact everyone involved. David and Emily had not only gained friends but had found a chosen family who embraced them with open arms. Though the road ahead remained fraught with challenges, for the first time in a long time, a glimmer of hope illuminated their path. Little did they know that this newfound bond would soon face tests of its own, as a single act of kindness set into motion a series of events that would challenge the boundaries of love, loyalty, and forgiveness. As the months unfolded, the bond between David, Emily, Mrs. Collins, and Michael grew ever deeper. What had begun as occasional visits soon evolved into a cherished routine, with Mrs. Collins' mansion becoming a warm and welcoming second home for David and his daughter. Michael, ever true to his promise, began providing Emily with private lessons, marveling daily at her insatiable curiosity and rapid learning. David, in turn, found solace and wisdom in Mrs. Collins' guidance, her steadfast optimism serving as a balm for his beleaguered spirit. Gradually, he started to rediscover his self-confidence and a sense of hope for the future. One sunny afternoon, as David assisted Mrs. Collins in tending to her lush garden, he hesitated before broaching a subject that had been occupying his thoughts: Mrs. Collins. He began, his voice tinged with uncertainty. "I've been contemplating something. Do you think it would be utterly foolish if I attempted to restart my career, in business?" Mrs. Collins paused, setting her watering can aside, and regarded David with a gentle, encouraging smile. "My dear, it is never foolish to strive for improvement. Tell me, what do you have in mind?" David shared his idea about a small grocery store for sale in the neighborhood. The owner, an elderly man who had known David from his days on the street, had offered to sell it to him at an exceptionally low price with favorable payment terms. "It's a unique opportunity," David explained, "but I'm apprehensive. What if I fail again? I can't risk jeopardizing Emily's future." Mrs. Collins took David's hands in hers, her gaze filled with reassurance. "Fear is a natural part of any endeavor, David. However, true failure lies not in falling but in refusing to rise again. And you, my dear friend, have repeatedly demonstrated your remarkable ability to overcome adversity." Bolstered by Mrs. Collins' encouraging words, David resolved to seize the opportunity. With Michael's assistance, who generously lent him the money for the down payment, David became the proud owner of David's Corner, a small yet inviting grocery store. The initial months were grueling. David worked tirelessly from dawn till dusk, familiarizing himself with the intricacies of running a business. Emily, ever eager to support her father, took on the role of the store's unofficial helper, organizing shelves and keeping him company during quieter times. Michael continued his private lessons with Emily and soon observed a transformation in her. The once shy and reserved girl now exuded newfound confidence. Her enthusiasm for learning was palpable, inspiring those around her and bringing a renewed sense of vibrancy to her studies. Mrs. Collins remained a steadfast pillar of support for both David and Emily. Her presence was a constant reminder of the resilience and strength that had guided them through their darkest hours. The weekly tea parties at her home became treasured rituals, filled with laughter, shared stories, and deepened friendships. Despite the hurdles, David's Corner began to flourish. The store became a beloved neighborhood fixture, known not just for its quality goods but for the warmth and friendliness that David and Emily infused into it. The business provided David with a renewed sense of purpose and stability, offering him a glimpse of a brighter future. One serene evening, after a particularly successful day at the store, David and Emily sat on a bench in the garden behind the shop, soaking in the beauty of the sunset. "You know, Dad," Emily said, her voice filled with quiet optimism, "I think everything is going to be okay." David looked at his daughter, a contented smile spreading across his face. "You're right, Emily. It's been a challenging journey, but seeing you happy makes it all worthwhile." As they sat together, relishing the tranquility of the moment, they remained unaware that their lives were on the cusp of another unforeseen twist. The intricate web of relationships and kindness that had been woven over the months was about to be tested in ways they could never have foreseen. As the first stars began to pierce the twilight sky, David and Emily held fast to the hope that their newfound family and friends would help them navigate the challenges that lay ahead. Alejandro's admission weighed heavily in the room. With tears welling up in his eyes, Alejandro's voice trembled as he spoke. "I came here today to talk to her, but I couldn't summon the courage." David stood up, his expression a blend of disappointment and empathy. "Find that courage, Alejandro. Emily deserves the truth, no matter how painful." As David made his way back to Emily's room, his mind churned with a storm of thoughts. He grappled with the urgent need to shield his daughter from this newfound anguish. How could he protect her from not just the physical recovery but also the crushing emotional blow of betrayal? Entering the room, David saw Emily engaged in an animated conversation with Michael. Her radiant smile was a beacon of joy that David hadn't seen in ages. Michael's gaze, a mix of affection and professional concern, was fixed on her. In that pivotal moment, David made a decision. He would not reveal Alejandro's betrayal to Emily, at least not yet. His daughter needed to concentrate on her recovery. She needed positivity and support, and learning about Alejandro's betrayal would only inflict more pain and potentially hinder her progress. "Everything okay?" Dad, Emily's concerned voice pulled David from his thoughts. He forced a reassuring smile. "Everything's perfect, sweetheart. I was just thinking about how fortunate we are to have you back with us." Michael observed David closely, sensing an underlying tension, but chose not to press the issue at that moment. The subsequent days proved to be a challenge for David. Each time Emily inquired about Alejandro, he crafted evasions, claims that he was preoccupied with college or dealing with family matters, anything to avoid the searing truth. Michael, perceptive and concerned, confronted David one evening after Emily had drifted to sleep. "David, something is wrong. I know you're hiding something." Overwhelmed by the burden of his secret, David finally unraveled, revealing to Michael the full extent of Alejandro and Rose's betrayal and his decision to withhold this truth from Emily. Michael listened with a solemn expression, his face a canvas of understanding and concern. When David finished, Michael's voice was soft yet firm. "I understand your intentions, but keeping this from Emily isn't the answer. Eventually, she will discover the truth, and she will feel betrayed not only by Alejandro but also by you." David recognized the validity of Michael's words, but the fear of causing his daughter further pain was overpowering. I need a bit more time, David pleaded. Until she's stronger, more equipped to handle this, Michael nodded, albeit reluctantly. All right, but don't delay too long. Emily's resilience might surprise you. Unbeknownst to both men, their conversation had been overheard. Mrs. Collins, who had come to visit Emily and fallen asleep in a chair in the hallway, awoke just in time to catch their discussion. With her profound wisdom, she understood that this secret would only exacerbate the suffering in the end. Meanwhile, Emily continued her recovery, blissfully unaware of the drama unfolding around her. Each day brought progress. Her physical strength improved, her memory sharpened, and her indomitable spirit shone brighter than ever. But destiny had its plans. One afternoon, as Emily scrolled through social media on her phone, an activity permitted as part of her cognitive therapy, she stumbled upon a photo that shattered her world. It was of Alejandro, grinning widely with a girl Emily didn't recognize. The caption read, "6 months with the love of my life." Emily's anguished scream reverberated through the hospital. David, who had been speaking with a nurse in the corridor, rushed into the room, his heart pounding in his chest. He found his daughter in tears, clutching her phone with trembling hands. "Emily, what's wrong?" David asked, though he feared he already knew the answer. Through her sobs, Emily showed him the phone. Alejandro. How could he? David felt his world unraveling. Everything he had dreaded, everything he had hoped to prevent, was unfolding most agonizingly. He enveloped his daughter in his arms, letting her cry on his shoulder as she had when she was younger. "I'm so sorry, my girl," he whispered, his voice breaking. Emily pulled away abruptly, her eyes filled with a mix of pain and betrayal. "You knew," she demanded, her voice edged with fury. David looked down, unable to sustain the lie any longer. "Yes, I knew. Alejandro confided in me a few weeks ago. I wanted to shield you, to give you time to recover before." Before what? Emily interrupted, her voice sharp with anger. "Before revealing that the man I loved was betraying me? That while I was fighting for my life, he was building a new one with someone else?" At that moment, Michael entered the room, drawn by the commotion. His eyes quickly assessed the scene, and he understood the gravity of what had transpired. As Emily reluctantly agreed to speak with her father and Michael, the weight of her decision was evident. The path to healing was fraught with difficulty, but the first step was acknowledging the possibility of forgiveness. David and Michael awaited Emily's call with a mix of hope and trepidation. When Mrs. Collins brought them the news, they entered the room with heavy hearts. David, with tears brimming in his eyes, approached his daughter slowly, while Michael stood back, giving them space. Emily looked at her father, her face still a mask of hurt, but softened by the presence of Mrs. Collins. "Dad," she began, her voice cracking, "I need to hear everything. No more lies." David nodded, his voice trembling. "I'm so sorry, Emily. I thought I was protecting you, trying to shield you from more pain. But I realize now that keeping the truth from you only caused more hurt." He took a deep breath and recounted the events leading up to Alejandro's betrayal, the conversations with Alejandro, and his decision to shield Emily. His explanation was raw and emotional, filled with the pain of a father who had tried to do what he thought was best, only to have his actions come back to haunt him. Emily listened intently, her emotions a whirlwind as she absorbed her father's words. When David finished, she turned to Michael. "And you knew too." Michael, his voice heavy with regret, explained his role in the situation. "I should have been honest with you from the start. I let my guilt and desire to protect you cloud my judgment. I'm deeply sorry for the betrayal." Emily took a moment, her thoughts racing. "So, what now?" she asked finally. "How do we move forward from this?" David and Michael exchanged glances, both understanding that rebuilding trust would be a long and arduous process. "I don't expect things to be fixed overnight," David said softly. "All I ask is for a chance to show you that I am here for you, no matter what, to support you as you heal, both physically and emotionally." Michael nodded in agreement. "I'll do whatever it takes to earn back your trust. I care about you and your father more than you know." Emily's gaze softened, though the pain was still evident. "It will take time. I need time to process all of this and to see if I can trust you both again." Mrs. Collins, who had been quietly observing, gently interjected, "Remember, my dear, healing is a journey, not a destination. Take the time you need and let those who care for you walk this path alongside you." With a tentative agreement, Emily allowed her father and Michael to be a part of her recovery process, though the emotional scars would take longer to mend. David continued to be a steadfast presence, committed to supporting his daughter through her physical and emotional healing. Michael worked diligently to regain Emily's trust, demonstrating through his actions his genuine remorse and care. Mrs. Collins remained a guiding force, her wisdom and compassion helping to bridge the gap between the past hurt and the potential for future healing. She frequently visited Emily, offering her support and comfort, and helped to create an environment where forgiveness and understanding could begin to take root. The journey ahead was uncertain, marked by the trials of rebuilding trust and mending relationships. But with the combined efforts of love, honesty, and the steadfast support of friends and family, there was hope that, in time, the wounds would heal and the bonds between them could be restored. As Alejandro made his way to the hospital, his heart was heavy with the weight of his past actions. He had spent weeks wrestling with his conscience, trying to find the right words to express his regret and to seek Emily's forgiveness. His guilt had driven him to make this final attempt, believing it might bring some form of closure for both him and Emily. When he arrived at the hospital, he was met with a mixture of reluctance and hostility from the staff, who had been briefed about the situation and were wary of his presence. Alejandro, however, was determined. He had come prepared with a heartfelt letter, which he hoped would convey his sincere apologies and his deep regret. In the meantime, Emily, despite her efforts to move forward, still had moments of vulnerability. Her recovery was progressing, but the emotional scars from Alejandro's betrayal lingered. David and Michael continued to support her, trying to navigate the delicate balance between offering comfort and respecting her need for space. That evening, Emily was resting in her room when the hospital's security team approached her, notifying her of Alejandro's presence. Emily's heart sank. She had not expected to see him again and felt a rush of conflicting emotions. After a moment of hesitation, she agreed to meet with him, driven by a desire for closure. Alejandro was brought to her room, his face etched with remorse. As he entered, he nervously clutched the letter in his hand. Emily looked at him, her emotions raw and her resolve wavering. "Emily," Alejandro began, his voice trembling, "I know I have no right to ask anything from you, but I need you to know how deeply sorry I am for everything that has happened." He held out the letter, but Emily didn't reach for it. Instead, she looked at him with a mixture of pain and determination. "Why now, Alejandro? Why did you wait so long?" she asked, her voice strained. Alejandro took a deep breath. "I've been struggling with my guilt, trying to find the right moment to face you. I know my timing is terrible, and I can't undo the damage I've caused, but I needed to try to let you know that I'm truly sorry." Emily's eyes filled with tears as she listened to his words. "It's too late for apologies," she said quietly. "The pain you caused me, how do you even begin to make up for that?" Alejandro's shoulders slumped. "I know I can't make it up to you. All I can offer is my sincerest apology and hope that, in time, you might find it in your heart to forgive me." Emily looked away, struggling with her emotions, The encounter was painful, but it also provided a measure of closure. She took a deep breath, her voice steady but emotionally charged. "Thank you for your apology, Alejandro. I don't know if I can ever forgive you, but I needed to hear it from you." Alejandro nodded, tears streaming down his face. "I understand. I just hope you find the peace you deserve." As Alejandro left, David and Michael, who had been waiting outside, approached Emily. They saw the turmoil in her eyes and knew that the encounter had been emotionally draining. Michael gently took Emily's hand, offering silent support. David looked at his daughter with a mixture of sorrow and concern. "How are you feeling?" David asked softly. Emily shook her head, struggling to find the right words. "It's complicated. I feel some relief, but it's still hard to process." Michael squeezed her hand reassuringly. "If you need to talk or if there's anything we can do, we're here for you." David nodded in agreement. "Absolutely. We'll get through this together." The encounter with Alejandro had been a significant moment in Emily's journey toward healing. While it didn't erase the past, it marked a step toward closure and the possibility of moving forward. The path ahead remained challenging, but with the support of her father and Michael, Emily began to embrace the hope of a new chapter in her life, one that would be shaped by resilience, forgiveness, and the unwavering love of those who cared for her. As we come to the end of this emotional journey, we've witnessed the profound impact of forgiveness, the strength required to face betrayal, and the resilience of the human spirit. From David and Emily's struggles and the support of friends like Michael and Mrs. Collins, we've seen how love, understanding, and honesty can help heal even the deepest wounds. What has this story taught you? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Share one thing you've learned and how you plan to bring it into your own life in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment, like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more heartfelt stories and inspiring content. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.